I think it's really important that everybody remember that $500 million are at stake right now. Charles Hurwitz is on the verge of receiving $500 million for a very small portion of land. He's getting approximately $75,000 an acre for land, half of which is clear cut. All of you homeowners in Humboldt County should be so lucky to get that for your land, if that's what you wanted. But he won't get that money until he has an approved habitat conservation plan. Now, you can't get a habitat conservation plan if you've committed a crime on the land you're applying for the permit. So in other words, if the Pacific Lumber Company is convicted of involuntary manslaughter of David Chain, if they're convicted of violating the Endangered Species Act on that land while in the commission of involuntary manslaughter, they can be turned down for their habitat conservation plan and lose their $500 million. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a hunch, just a hunch, that Sheriff Lewis and District Attorney Terry Farmer don't have the spinal cord or the desire to take $500 million away from Charles Hurwitz. Yeah. It's just a hunch. So that's why Earth First is out there with its own restraining order on the logging. And that's why we want you to join us, because it's the common law that must rule out there, since the law that's supposedly propagated in this building is completely inept or worse, complicit in the crime that is taking place out there. Now, a lot of folks have been talking about how this goes all the way to the doorstep of Charles Hurwitz. And I want to read to you a little excerpt from Timber Wars by Judy Barry. And this is she's writing about an experience that George Shook and myself were involved in 1989 and 1990 when we were sued by the Pacific Lumber Company for sitting in one of their trees for 5 days. It's back in the days when 5 days was how long you sat into a tree, as opposed to 5 years or however long it is now. And what you're about to hear is from an excerpt called the Palco Papers, because when Pacific Lumber sued us, we get to discover any documents they have. As Mark Harris said a long time ago, we're going to subpoena every document that has the word tree in it. And so we did, and this is what we got. But here's the opening paragraph from Judy. I want to just invoke her words a little bit. For the Palco Papers. March 27th, 1991. Corporate millionaires are a vindictive lot. Take Charles Hurwitz, for example. When he's not busy raiding other companies, slaughtering ancient redwoods, or stealing the workers' pension plan, Hurwitz amuses himself by suing impoverished Earth Firsters. Thus it came to be that Pacific Lumber, also known as Palco, is suing Earth First activists Darryl Cherney and George Shook for $25,000 for the crime of sitting in a redwood tree. Since they needed to prove Earth Firsters can't get a fair trial in Fortuna, lawyer Mark Harris used the right of discovery to request all documents Pacific Lumber may have relating to Cherney or Earth First. The stuff he got back, mostly internal company memos sent from Public Relations Director David Galitz to Palco President John Campbell and CC'd to Charles Hurwitz, shows a sneering, bully mentality worthy of any Mississippi good old boy. And it shows Pacific Lumber's complicity, at least in the role of official cheerleader in the violence we are subjected to. I'm not making up a word of this. These are the real Pacific Lumber memos and are available for inspection. The first memo is dated June 21st, 1989, shortly after Earth First organizer Greg King was punched and knocked to the ground by an irate logger at a nonviolent demonstration in Calpella. Galitz sends this memo, along with a clipping from the Press Democrat, to Charles Hurwitz, John Campbell, and others in Maxam and Palco management. It reads, subject, Earth First. Enclosed is an article on Cherney and King's latest stunt. As soon as we find the home of the fine fellow who decked Greg King, he has a dinner invitation at the Galitz residence. So Pacific Lumber is inviting the loggers who do us violence to dinner as a reward for doing violence against us. The next memo we have is dated April 18th, 1990, right around the time the timber companies began circulating false press releases claiming to be from unnamed Earth Firsters, saying we were intending to use violence against loggers. Galitz writes to John Campbell, subject, Earth First. Enclosed is a Press Democrat article on environmentalists' internal split over Mississippi summer. Enclosed is a flyer with an Earth First logo. However, as Darryl's name is misspelled, we are not sure who put it out. Now you got to remember that Pacific Lumber Company was distributing that memo as an actual Earth First document to the media, while internally they were acknowledging that they had no idea who put it out and that it was probably a fake. Once again, encouraging the violence against activists. On April 23rd, Galitz sent another memo to John Campbell, this time chuckling over the death threats that I, Judy Barry, was receiving. Subject, Earth First. How attitudes can change when Earth First put out the wanted poster on Charles, one for $1,000 and later for $5,000 reward, it was okay. Now Ms. Barry is upset. She apparently has her own wanted flyer. Now you got to remember the wanted flyer we were putting out and still put out asked for information, legitimate information leading to the arrest and conviction and incarceration of Charles Hurwitz for corporate crimes. The flyers Judy Barry was receiving were death threats that were ultimately acted upon. These are not comparable. But I do want to say this, that we still have that reward poster for Charles Hurwitz, only now the amount is $50,000, leading to the arrest, conviction, and incarceration for Charles Hurwitz. And you can find the information, your Jail Hurwitz starter kit, on the World Wide Web at www.jailhurwitz.com. Now here's another memo. This was sent once again from David Galitz to Kevin, who is Kevin Eckery of the Timber Association of California, and to Shep Tucker of Louisiana Pacific with the following cover letter. Dear Kevin, our Southern California salespeople were kind enough to send the enclosed. It is so good we had to share it. I may join, if only to enjoy the writing style. Sincerely, Dave Galitz, Public Relations Affairs Manager, Pacific Lumber. And here's the memo that Pacific Lumber enjoyed the style of so much. It's from a group called the Sahara Club in Southern California. Special Sahara Clubbers Division. The Sahara Club needs about a dozen volunteers to form a special division. The Sahara Clubbers. All volunteers should weigh at least 200 pounds and have a bad attitude. Big, tall, ugly desert riders preferred. We want to set up a few trucks with Sahara Club stickers in certain spots and see who might be tempted to break the law. Naturally, clubbers will be expected to honor all laws, but if some Earth First scum resist a citizen's arrest in the process, it may be necessary to subdue them prior to turning them over to the authorities. Sounds familiar, huh? Yeah. If interested, contact us by mail. All names will be carefully checked via the off-road grapevine. Clubbers will be issued personalized walking sticks about the size of baseball bats. So these, and many, many others, are the memoranda that are being circulated, that were being circulated by the Pacific Lumber circa 1990. Apparently back then, and we will turn these documents over to the attorneys working on the current case here regarding Gypsy David Chain. Apparently, it is the official policy of the Maxam Pacific Lumber Corporation to foster violence. It is a long tradition that they have. And of course, we've been targets of that violence. I'd like to sing you just a brief a cappella song